I'm Rick Gefkin. I'm a longtime Monmouth County native. We are at what was at one time Fort Hancock. This particular military installation goes back unto the Civil War, but as I think most of us know, the Sandy Hook Lighthouse was built in 1746. It's the oldest operating lighthouse in the country, and it was also British-held territory during the entirety of the Revolutionary War. So it's interesting to think about Colonel Tye, or Titus as he was called as a young man, his early life. And as we might expect, we know very little about that. But we can infer from what other enslaved people did and were known to have done while they were beholden to the people that owned them. So that sets the stage for a particularly interesting man that we know about because of a record, actually a newspaper ad, that a man named John Corliss, who lived in what they call then Rumson Neck, part of Shrewsbury, at the very eastern end of Rumson today. John Corliss had at least 4 enslaved people that we know about, including a woman named Sarah and her son named Titus. John Corliss in November 1775 took out an ad in both the Philadelphia newspaper and also the New York City newspapers, advertising for the return and capture of Titus, who had run away early, probably the first week of November of 1775. He did that because he expected that Titus would try to blend in with free blacks and other black folks in both, or either, I should say, New York or Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. Eventually, by 1778, we find that Titus is here at Sandy Hook, actively working with the British. So Titus winds up here, and because he had grown up for the first 2 decades of his life across the river, he knew this part of Monmouth County very well. And as he did that, he impressed the British refugees and also the British troops that were here, and they began to use him to infiltrate into mainland Monmouth County on raids, foraging raids basically, for food, cattle, grain, whatever they could steal and rob from the civilians in Monmouth County. Titus was so revered by these folks, and a very young man, still maybe 21 or so, that they started to call him Colonel Tye, T-Y-E. It's a bit of a misnomer because the British never promoted black folks into any military rank. But what we believe is that he was called colonel by the men he was leading, both black and white, on the raids into the mainland. And so it's pretty high honor for a young man, especially, to be given that kind of a title, however honorary it might have been. And his time during the Revolution is marked from 1778 to 1779 by probably a half a dozen or so raids into various farms and other places in Monmouth County, where he began to be referred to as a terrorist by the local loyalists who were still on the Monmouth County side. The reason for that is, as you might suspect, black people had never been, especially enslaved black people, had never been allowed guns of any kind before and in the early stages of the war. So when Titus leads this band of black people who began to be called the Black Brigade across into Monmouth County, riding with stolen horses or on wagons, depending on what they had to do, he terrified both the civilians and also the rebel militia who were fighting against the British. So he gains pretty quickly a reputation and gets named in several newspaper ads. And interestingly enough, anytime there were black troops raiding across into Monmouth County during the Revolution, people assumed that it was Colonel Tye leading them. Most of the action that went on in Middletown and Monmouth County were small bands of opposing militia or civilians fighting each other. So except for the Battle of Monmouth, who don't have army by army engagements, it's small skirmishes, of which there were dozens and dozens throughout the war. Colonel Tye and a man named Joshua Huddy, who was originally from Salem County but winds up here in the Monmouth militia, were prominent in that regard. So in February of 1777, actually on the 13th, the British sent a ship down from Staten Island. They landed here in the Inner Bay, took on probably Colonel Tye and some other Black Loyalist troops. They went across and assaulted by surprise on a very cold, snowy night the folks at the militia station east of Hartshorn's house. It was a battle that was disastrous for the Monmouth militia. Many of the Monmouth militia ran into the woods to escape, and at least 75 that we have record of were captured by the British and brought up to the infamous Sugar House prisons in New York City. Within months, we find that Joshua Huddy, a civilian, is suddenly a captain in the militia working under David Forman. The British, as a matter of fact, called David Forman Black David because they said his heart was so full of malice toward them that he showed them no mercy at all. And he begins to do what he can to wreak havoc on British loyalists throughout Monmouth County. That comes to the attention, naturally, of the British refugees out here on Sandy Hook, including Colonel Tye, who starts to pursue Joshua Huddy. So when British loyal spies let the people here at Sandy Hook know that Joshua Huddy was at his house, taking more or less a leave of absence, Colonel Tye led a group of people across the river by boat. They took some horses, or were given horses perhaps, by some other loyalists, and they went and besieged Joshua Huddy's house and cavern during a late August and early September period in 1780. They in fact tried to burn down the house. Joshua Huddy was captured during this 15 or 20-minute engagement, during which also Colonel Tye was wounded by a musket shot from Joshua Huddy. Colonel Tye, who's wounded in the wrist, and the other British refugee loyalists take the long journey back to what was then Rumson Neck. They're putting Huddy in a boat, and actually a series of 4 boats. They're going to row back here to Sandy Hook, where they're going to use him for exchange. Joshua Huddy was a militia captain, and in those days, the British and the Americans usually exchanged prisoners of war when they were officers. In any event, the militia caught up with the British and the people that had captured Huddy, including Colonel Tye, right off Black Point and across the river from Middletown. And a firefight ensued. The boat's overturned. Huddy gets shot by his own men as he's swimming back to shore and cries out, "I am Huddy, I am Huddy." In other words, don't shoot. And the British, some of them swim to the Sandy Hook side of the river and then retreat up to Sandy Hook. Now, the last time we ever hear in print or any other written record about Colonel Tye is then, in September of 1780. Rumors and legends have come down to us that he probably died of tetanus because of the wound in his wrist. But I believe, in fact, during that encounter, when the boats that he was in with Joshua Huddy overturned, I think Colonel Tye drowned. Because even if he could swim, which we don't know, he's wounded, and he's got the use of probably one arm. And with the currents in the Shrewsbury-Navissing River what they were, he undoubtedly got swept away. And I say that because there are no known burial sites. There are no further newspaper articles about the infamous Colonel Tye after that incident.